Good morning, beautiful people. We are live.
The sun is rising, the sky is blue. Good morning, grand risings, let's see what's new. It's that time of day for Sonia and crew. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton. Cup of coffee in hand, starting fresh with the beans. Wake up, sleepy heads, and shake off those dreams. Good morning, grand risings. It's time to wake up with Sonia Poulton.
Good morning, grand risings to you all. It is Friday, the 3rd of January, 2025. It has just gone 9:01 a.m. GMT, and I feel full of life, and Crone is doing the Crone shuffle, and we love it. And before we go any further, first of all, thank you to our lovely darling Markson for our new jingle of 2025, kicking us off in wonderful style. Oh, yes. Good morning to you all. Yes, Whitney Webb. I've just seen her name pop up in the comments. Yes, Lorraine. Whitney Webb was indeed on the Raw Report with me. She's been on other places with me as well. And can I just say, happy birthday. Happy birthday to our crazy bunny, our mod, crazy bunny, our Zozo. Morning to you all. She'll be on with us later at 10 a.m. talking about her own personal journey. Good morning, Belfast. How are you, Gillian and Daniel and Lisa? Good morning to you all. And hello, Fred and Dilip and our lovely Soul Sound. Of course, Soul Sound sent me a 5-minute jingle this morning, which in the early hours of the morning, she's been working on it till late, but we've only got time for a brief burst of it, but I'll play that later with Zoe, because I had to obviously go through it and, YouTube censors and all that sort of boring stuff. But thank you so much, Soul Sound. Wonderful. What a year ahead for us all. Be happy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Happy birthday, Crazy Bunny. Hi, Mickey. Hi, Craig from Somerset. And Christine, how are you? Hello. And hello to Michelle. She's a newbie in the chat. How was your Christmas? Do you celebrate Christmas? How was your new year? Of course, many people don't see this as a new year at all. Me being one of them. And because we're in the middle of winter here on the Northern Hemisphere, it's ridiculous, this idea that we're all starting fresh and new. No, that's in spring, which is April. And I saw somebody, yes, Randy, a 5-minute jingle might be a smidge long, just a smidge. But yes, Crazy Bunny, lovely Soul Sound, has made a wonderful tune for you. Yes, she has. Sonia, 2024 was about understanding the truth, and 2025 is about speaking that truth now. I love that. I think 2024 was an amazing year full of big revelations. And before we can move forward, I want to reflect back with our guest today about all of the things that were revealed. Huge year, massive year for truth. Yes, it was. And Teresa in the comments wants to point out this happy Earth Day to the amazing mod Synchronized Soul. Yes, we know that, Teresa. Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful, Zoe. Zoe has got a special podcast tonight as well. It's a busy day for her. Good morning, Silvana. Ciao to you. Yes, Happy New Year, post-cult. Crazy. Have a great day. The original track is 12 minutes, says Soul Sound. She's not messing around, is she? Right, what's coming up on today's show? We will be joined by former Transport Superintendent Tony Thompson, who will be talking to us about the big reveal in terms of miscarriages of justice, and more specifically that of Clive Freeman. You may be familiar with the story, but we will tell you more shortly. We'll also be joined by geopolitical engineer, I was just going to say journalist, Warren Thornton, who's going to be talking to us about the big reveal of the military-industrial complex. And I'll also be joined by somebody I personally love very much. Her name is Charlotte Binns. She's also known as the Baroness online. She's a former producer of mine, but she's going to be joining us to have a chat with me about the royal family. And what was all that cancer stuff about last year? And I'll also be joined, as I say, at 10 a.m. by Zoe, Crazy Bunny, who will be talking about her own personal revelations in 2024. And after Zoe, we'll be joined by journalist and commentator David English, who will be talking to us about the big reveals regarding immigration, protests, and punishment. It was a massive year last year. And I think reflecting on it the way that we intend to today will show you how big a year it was. Sometimes when you've come through all those 12 months, it's difficult to remember exactly what the, twists and turns entailed, but it was a massive year, massive. And at the end of the show, we'll be joined by podcaster Craig Campbell, who will be rounding off with us and about his big reveal regarding the case of Madelaine McCann. For some reason, I keep going to say Marilyn Monroe when I'm saying Madelaine McCann, which is odd. I know it's 2 M's, but it's still odd. And hello, welcome, and thank you to everybody for being here. Lots of emails. Please bear with me. Normal service will be resumed on Friday. Adverts are off for today's show. Oh, yes, they are. Because I thought it was a good way to start the new year. It doesn't mean that they're going to have to be off for every show because we still need that revenue. But at the moment, we're talking with potential sponsors for this show. If you might be one of them, please get in touch with me at Sonia Poulton at sky.com, and I will pass them to my new business manager. Yes, I have one. I have a business manager. It's somebody that I know, trust, and love, because not many people I would trust to do that job. And she's stepping into the role in order to help us grow around here. Yes, time to do the right thing. Let's grow this baby. And this is me setting my best intentions for the first wake up for 2025. And as I say right now, according to nature, this is not the time for new beginnings, but it is time still for taking those little baby steps in a long and winding road of developing this show from nothing in May 2024 to something right now, which is what it is. Yep, we've done that. Wake Up is a program, and this year we will see it grow even more. And can I just say, I am absolutely delighted with the results of having been on the podcast with Andrew Gold. I don't do a lot of podcasts, as many know about me, right? It's not, I prefer to be on this side. I prefer to be the host. But I did a podcast with Andrew Gold because I like them. I like the people involved. It's second year running. It went viral, which was quite amazing. It's currently heading towards 900,000 views, which is just amazing. Thank you so much. Old and new alike. Really appreciate it. Truly appreciate it. Thank you for your tremendous response. Thank you for all the new subs on social media, including on YouTube. And just thank you in general for the feedback. Did you love it? Short order cook? Yes, I like Andrew too. It's heading for 1 million views, Peter. It is. How exciting is that? Nearly 1 million people are knowing about the deep level of corruption that we know about around here. How amazing is that? It's so exciting. So this last year, as I say, we're going to be talking a lot in detail about the revelations that have come through 2024. And I see it as a time of various establishments crumbling around us. That is royal establishment, the church establishment, the media establishment, the political establishment, the big tech establishment, all of them crumbling down. The royals, of course, we had all the fallout from sadist John Smythe, who was allowed to continue for decades, beating and just doing heinous things to young boys so badly that they had to wear nappies because they were beaten so badly. Then, of course, we had the fallout, the media fallout to do with Hugh Edwards and the BBC. Not that anybody watching this program is going to be so surprised about predators at the BBC. Right? We're not surprised about that. What was probably most surprising was that Hugh Edwards was busted at all. He, of course, I'll be talking about him with Marilyn Hawes, brilliant activist and campaigner Marilyn Hawes later. He, of course, was eventually busted for making and downloading child abuse images, some of them category A. Yes, Lisa, more people to wake up. Fantastic job indeed. Did you, Fred? Did you enjoy it? Good to hear it. We're in a race with AI now as to who can gain control. Yes, I need to watch the second half, said Healing the Silence. I don't hold back. No, I don't hold back, Healing the Silence. No, I don't. And what else has been busted in 2024? Well, right at the end of it, Elon Musk kind of got busted quite seriously because obviously, Elon Musk and Donald Trump have got in on the whole ticket of, well, largely to do with immigration, right? It turns out that Elon Musk has been stocking his companies with Indians that he's brought over, I think primarily from Pakistan. And he brings them over on the H-1B ticket, which is to do with immigration. It's about bringing in the best of the best in order to be able to work for you. But actually, Elon Musk is paying them pretty much a pittance because he can get away with it. And so it does actually look like Elon Musk is part of the great replacement after all. So what did he do? Well, when he realized he'd been busted and the fallout was huge on X over Christmas, like literally he chose Christmas Day / Boxing Day to announce all of this, and he got caught in the trap, and it was all really interesting to see the whole fallout of it. It was really contrary to what they'd been saying. And so what he did, because he realized he was in trouble, was that he focused his gaze on the UK and on our issue with grooming gangs, of which it is an absolute issue. Yes, it is. But Elon Musk, I got you. I realized what you did there. Absolutely. And that was, you received such a panning from the people who are normally in your core that you were like, okay, what else? What other area can I go to where I'll get loads of support on X? And that's what he did. And of course, it was very interesting in 2024 because the music establishment started to get busted at last, and not a second before time. So interesting times, people. Interesting times indeed. And I'm going to be welcoming in our first guest any moment now. Any moment now. When did anyone start to trust Musk? Lorraine wants to know. I don't know. Ian says they're all bent. Peter says, hopefully more and more will see through Musk. Well, that was clearly, I mean, that was so clear, wasn't it? It was just so absolutely clear. Because the thing is, why do you need to, this whole idea that you need to bring in people, what about actually giving people decent training who are already there? What about that? Is that like Musk was so demonizing of Americans and their ability and their intelligence? It was shocking. And at one stage, there was literally 3 immigrants who appeared to be now ruling America to a certain degree who were discussing their immigration policy. Sandy Adams. Yes, Sandy's been with us before. That's live. She's brilliant. I'm going to bring in our first guest. I will bring back Sandy, though. I'm going to bring in our first guest. Here he is. Lovely Tony Thompson. Look how smart Tony is looking. Happy New Year to you, Tony.
Happy New Year, Sonia. Nice to see you again.
Wonderful to see you too. Today on our show is all about the big reveals of 2024. Now, you've been standing up for a man who is struggling to be able to stand up for himself because he's been locked away for an inordinate period of time. Clive Freeman. For new viewers today, we do have new viewers. Give us a little bit of background of who Clive is.
Right, Sonia. Well, Clive Freeman, ironically, has just spent his 36th year in a British prison for a crime that all the evidence suggests wasn't a crime at all, for a case of murder and arson back in 1988. I call him Freeman the Forgotten because all the different institutions and organizations, some of which you mentioned earlier in your introduction, have turned a blind eye. They seem to completely have failed him over the years, although there is some hope. Back on April the 16th in 1988, there was a fire in a flat in East London, and the fire brigade turned up. A body was found in the flat, partially burnt. And it was a flat that Clive Freeman had vacated. And he was part of a planned trip going over from his home in former Rhodesia to America and then to Australia to look for a new place to settle down because of the political turmoil in Rhodesia and then Zimbabwe that was happening at the time. Anyway, the police made a very botched investigation, thought that Clive had found a what they called a vagrant, had murdered the man in his flat and then fled the country. And the motive, the police argued, was to try and cash in on an insurance policy. Clive at the time was overnight was staying in a hotel in central London. Unfortunately, the police investigation eventually took them to Australia. Clive left all his forwarded information in the flat which he'd vacated, and sadly was arrested in Australia, brought back to the UK. Said, well, I've got an alibi. I wasn't there. The police did a completely botched investigation. Clive appeared at the Old Bailey, the Central Criminal Court, 89, jailed for murder and arson, and has been there ever since. So it's an absolute horrendous story, and one that will go down into the annals, because the case will eventually see the light of day. And I can tell you a little bit more about where we're at in a moment. But it's an appalling case. As a former senior police officer, I was absolutely shocked as to how he ended up in this situation.
Well, that was what I was going to get to next. Did all your spidey senses kick off with this? Because there must be, when you, with your history, when you look at something like this, which even to kind of laymen and laywomen like me, when we start to look, it's like something's badly wrong with this. You must have been having all manner of kind of receiving messages that something was seriously awry with this.
Well, I looked at it from a sort of reviewing the case from my former police days, to look at following the evidence, because it's the evidence or the lack of it in this case that convicted him. Clive exercised his right not to give evidence at trial, so there was a huge slew of prosecution evidence. Clive, because of family concerns in relation to the political situation back home in Rhodesia, decided that to rely purely on his alibi, which was that he was overnight in a hotel in central London, which was proven, and didn't challenge anything about the prosecution case, thinking his alibi was sufficient. He said, "I put my faith in the British justice system." Unfortunately, he's been stitched up by the state ever since.
And the reality is, which is awful, is that if he'd have said, "Yes, I did it," he would be long out by now, wouldn't he?
Exactly. I mean, Clive, some might say he's very stubborn and very obstinate, but he's saying, "I didn't do it." And
Right.
During the past year, I have been trying to establish why he hasn't been released on parole. He's saying, "I will not leave prison until I'm exonerated, and therefore I will not go on any rehabilitation courses. I don't need anger management. I don't need to understand the nature of my crime. I just didn't do it." And I've been corresponding with different secretaries of state and ministers, and they all have this very institutional defensive position. And the new government, from the Secretary of State's perspective in justice, is no different to the previous one. They all rely on their officials giving you the standard story. And what's happened over the past few months, I've managed to get hold of documentation from the prison service to show that Clive has actually failed what they call the statutory release test. Before anybody that's been convicted of an offence like a murder, a homicide, is released, obviously the parole board must be satisfied that the person is no longer a risk to the public, and we all understand that. Unfortunately, looking at the dossier that they've got, it's completely flawed. It is, and there's no mechanism at the moment to correct that wrong information. And Clive's saying, "I don't want parole. I want to come out if I'm exonerated, or I'm coming out in a box." And the way his health is looking, that's the way he's going to go if things don't improve.
Cavan says injustice system seems somewhat more appropriate. Certainly does regarding this. And of course, this is not to take anything away from the fact that a man died, but Alexander Hardy, of course. But the reality is that highly likely that a completely innocent man has spent nearly 4 decades. 4 decades. It's hard to comprehend, Tony.
I know. I mean, over the years, and I'm not claiming any credit for it, I've sort of picked up the ball in the last couple of years and are running with it. He's had about 15 lawyers. I'm not a lawyer, but I would say I'm better than that.
I would too.
An investigator. And Clive has gone through all the different lawyers. There's no legal aid. Everybody that's helping is helping free of charge. What's happened over the years? We're now into double figures of experts, not just in the UK, but from the States and other places, who are saying, this man, Mr. Hardy, clearly died, and a person did die, but he didn't die from an unlawful act. He died from what looks like natural causes and a combination of alcohol and prescription drugs. So there's no murderer running around on the loose. There is this man sadly died but not from an unlawful act. And what I have done, and I'm waiting to hear back from the coroner that covers the area where Mr. Hardy died in East London. I've said, because when you have a homicide, we have a murder, the inquest is opened and adjourned, and then if there's a prosecution, all the facts of the case are explored before the jury, and the inquest is never concluded because all the facts are heard at trial. So what I've done, I've written to the coroner, and I'm waiting any day now. Hopefully, I will hear back to him, say you can actually resume the inquest. Legally, you can resume the inquest because all the evidence shows that Mr. Hardy was not suffocated. All the experts say this man died from anything other than suffocation, and it looks like very much natural causes, or perhaps misadventure, a combination of the inappropriate use of alcohol and prescription drugs. So that's what I'm hoping to hear. I'm hoping that very shortly I will get a positive result from the coroner who will resume the inquest. And of course, if we get any other conclusion other than a deliberate act, then of course this will convince the CCRC, the Criminal Cases Review Commission, to refer the case to the Court of Appeal.
That's a fantastic power move. More power to your elbow. Absolutely love that. And of course, another brilliant power move was getting the Daily Mail, hugely influential, getting them interested to such a degree where they have run a series of articles last year where it clearly shows that they doubt now whether Clive could have been guilty at all. And that's a huge achievement. Talk to people about that.
Well, I contacted my friend who I've been in contact with for over 20 years from my police days, and said, look, this is a case where I'm convinced the conviction is wholly unsafe. And it's not about believing whether somebody says I did it or didn't. It's looking at the evidence trail. How did he get into this situation? And to be fair, the Daily Mail, they don't run these sorts of campaigns. So I had to explain to them, go through all the evidence and say, look, this is why this is unsafe. There was no murder. This wasn't the man that had anything to do with his death whatsoever. And so they picked that up and they've been running with it, and I'm hoping they're going to be I'm doing something with them at the moment, so hopefully in the next week or so we will see another big piece from the Mail exposing where we are at the moment. But it took some convincing, because they just don't do the campaigning issue, but they picked this up and realized this was a serious miscarriage of justice. Following the steps of Andrew Malkinson, there's another case that's been referred to the Court of Appeal that's going to be appearing very shortly as well for a murder case where the person's been in prison, in fact, slightly longer than Clive. So that case is coming up very shortly in the media.
This is a good question, I think a fair one, but why set this boy up? Because sometimes people struggle to understand how a situation like this could have arisen in the first place. Can you illuminate that at all?
Well, of course, and if you go back to the 1980s, we didn't have some of the DNA testing and some of the facilities available, and science has moved on, and that's one of the medical arguments about this particular case. I mean, one of the experts that's given evidence to help Clive did a lot of investigation into the George Floyd death in the United States, and explained how you can't sit on somebody in the way that the pathologist said in the court and kill them. So science has moved on. But once you get past the jury trial, if you're convicted by a jury, then trying to dismantle that, you have to show that there is new evidence, or evidence that wasn't available at the trial. In other words, if the jury had all the facts, you can't go back and say, well, you've just made a wrong decision. You have to show that there was new evidence or a new argument to show that if they'd known that fact or known that evidence, they would have come to probably a completely different conclusion and acquitted him. And that's the challenge. So once you've gone past the Court of Appeal, the only route out, the last chance saloon, is the Criminal Cases Review Commission, and that's had quite an understandable battering over the last couple of years, because the case of Andrew Malkinson is probably one of the more recent ones, where he'd been in prison for the best part of 20 years in a similar position to Clive,
accused of a rape that he never did.
Exactly, and there's an inquiry going on. There was an internal review that was the QC or KC carried out a review internally on the Criminal Cases Review Commission handling of the Andrew Malkinson case, and came up with a number of findings. The head of the Criminal Cases Review Commission, Helen Pitcher, The new Secretary of State said she'd got no confidence in her and she should stand down. Unfortunately, she didn't do that. So we now have a bit of a standoff, and we're waiting to hear whether the Secretary of State's actually going to get rid of her or not. I understand there's a panel decision to be made as to whether she can be removed from office. So again, it's a watch this space in the next week or so. But she was severely criticised for her leadership and management of the Criminal Cases Review Commission. And having looked at the inquiry, the internal inquiry into the Malkinson case, there are so many similarities over the handling of the Clive Freeman case in terms of how they investigate, their knowledge about crime scene analysis, their knowledge about how DNA is managed. It's pretty appalling, and their general timescale. Clive Freeman had 2 witnesses in his defence at the trial in 1988, and this is his 5th application. The CCRC have had his case for about 5 years. And we're still waiting. I submitted my application 18 months ago, and Clive's been supposedly fast-tracked because he's 81, he's got advanced prostate cancer, he's got mobility issues, and this is the fastest they can deal with it. It's absolutely outrageous.
Well, as you can imagine, our viewers are suitably outraged by it, as indeed they should be. But I think 2024 was a pivotal year in the campaign. Brilliant team working there on behalf of Clive, and absolutely brilliant. You are a wonderful, wonderful addition to that team, Tony. You really are. And I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. So just before you leave us, moving forward, next step.
Well, the Criminal Cases Review Commission, they are talking to me a bit more now, which was one of the recommendations from the Malkinson review. I said, why don't we actually talk about, if I can see if I can help you. They can't trace any of the defence files. The defence solicitors back in '88 no longer exist. The defence barrister that represented him, like most of the people, can't remember the case. There's so many similarities between this and the Post Office inquiry, where people said, I can't recall that. I don't remember that. It's this sort of institutional, I don't remember anything about it. I'm sorry, I didn't see that document. So many similarities. And there's a completely new review, or a review required of the Criminal Cases Review Commission. As I said, it's the only route for anybody that's wrongly convicted. And people are wrongly convicted. You know, our criminal justice system is far from perfect. How do we better deal with, because Andrew Malkinson came out of the Court of Appeal with, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only innocent.
Right.
How do we get the Criminal Cases Review Commission needs to be restructured. It needs, as I said previously in the mail, a fish rots from the head down. It needs a new head, a completely new review, and there needs to be some mechanism to look at some of these long-standing convictions where people are insisting, like Clive, and they've been locked up for years and years and years, and the key's been thrown away. He actually had a letter. He showed me this letter to say he's not eligible for the early release scheme when hundreds of prisoners were being chucked out because the prisons were full. And I said, well, that's a bit of an insult. How can you be early released if you've been in prison for best part of 40 years? But it's just...
It's farcical. It's farcical if it didn't involve somebody's life just kind of dripping away like that. Absolutely awful. I'm pretty sure he'll see this. We send you lots of love and just strength to get through this, Clive, right? We really, really do. Tony, what you do is phenomenal. Truly it is. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing, really.
I've got another 5 cases, by the way, from meeting Clive, where people have said, can you have a look at my case? So, yes, it's claims for miscarriages of justice there's many of them, and so I'm looking at those as well. But Clive is my top priority at the moment because, as you know, he's been in there a long time wrongly. And let's hope 2025 is going to be a positive one. I'm optimistic. I'm glass half full, and I am hopeful that we're going to see a positive outcome sooner rather than later.
Wonderful to hear it. Everybody, this is Tony Thompson. He is fighting to free Clive Freeman. Take good care of yourself. Happy New Year to you, Tony.
Happy New Year.
Lovely to see you. Wonderful. Wonderful. He speaks so well, doesn't he, about that case? Locked up for years, Michelle. Locked up for years. What did he say? 36 years. Absolutely ridiculous. It's obscene. It's a level of obscenity Tony articulates so brilliantly. the importance of that case. He really does. And yeah, it's astonishing stuff, really, isn't it? I first became interested in it because a lovely guy called Aaron. Aaron will not let up, by the way. Happy New Year to you, Aaron. You are such an ace geezer. And honestly, if ever I get in trouble, I want somebody like Aaron on my side. You know those people who just won't give up because they realize something's really wrong? That's Aaron. And Aaron has, for probably the last 4 years, made sure that I cover this case as much as humanly possible because it's important to. I would really like to think that if something like this had happened to me, that there would be people outside who were fighting for me. But it looks very much so that there was never, ever, sadly, a crime, not sadly, but there was never a crime committed. It looks as if Alexander Hardy, very, very sadly, died of, well, as natural causes as you can when you are homeless and you are drinking heavily and you're going through all manner of other things. So free Clive Freeman, frankly. Look at the people they let out to make way for people with banners and hurty words, says Shug. You're not impressed. The criminal justice system serves they who work within it best, says Selkie. I agree. Yes, locked up for years, especially when my mate Carl's pouring the spirits. I got it. Rather a half full glass than an empty one. Yes, indeed. Free Freeman, says William. I like that. Those responsible for his incarceration should face jail themselves. Well, I agree with that too. I absolutely agree with that too. Now, let me just check that my next guest has all the details. Yes, well, I'm just waiting for him. We're on a tight schedule today. So, yeah, I think a better solution for crimes committed on social media that don't cause physical harm should just be a ban from social media, no prison time necessary. Got you. Don't be racist now, right? Hunter Biden justice system. Yeah, it's a crock, isn't it, kids? Amazing. There's Aaron. Aaron is in the comments, everybody. Big him up. This guy is literally somebody who has refused to quit, which I absolutely love. We have to refuse to quit in these situations, don't we? I hope Warren Thornton has got my link that I sent him because I'd like to discuss with him, which he's scheduled to discuss, the whole issue of the military-industrial complex. If not, we'll just move on to our next guest. You're lucky to even have a glass, says Cavan. May the force be with you, Aaron. Hello, crazy. Hello, indeed. Right, while we're waiting for Warren to show, I do hope he does show. Stranger things have happened. Let me just, what is going on with all these people driving these cars? They're not cars driving into people. They're people driving cars into people. What's going on, people? Any idea? Any idea at all? So we had, obviously, the one in New Orleans, which just is horrendous. What, at least 10 dead, I think. And then what about that Tesla truck, right? The Tesla Cybertruck blowing up outside the Trump building. There's clearly a message there. Yeah, Charlotte, do me that favor, darling, please. That would be absolutely great. I truly appreciate that. I don't really understand. It seemed like a lot of mass confusion that was taking place all at once, didn't it? So I saw the pictures from the Cybertruck. I saw the images. So they're telling us that it was a soldier, Matthew Livelsberger, who is the man who filled the truck with explosives and fuel before driving it to the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas and setting them off on Wednesday morning. What are your thoughts about that? Seemed like a ritual, said the Count of Domain. Mr. Bojangles says, deep state psyops. It feels like a psyop. It feels like a psyop. Yes, it does. Something's really odd and weird about that. And then we are also told that a serving soldier, or no, somebody who's worked within, was the man responsible for driving the car into people in New Orleans. MK Ultra back in business. Jerry, I have to agree. There's something really odd and off about it. You know, when your solar plexus just refuses to accept this, it just seems really odd. So Livelsberger died in the bombing. They found some social media posts from him and his wife, and he appeared to be anti-Trump. That being anti-Trump is not a good enough reason to apparently blow yourself up, is it? It's all a distraction while they send billions to Ukraine. Yes, it would appear to be the case. Chaos and confusion, the Black Sun and world domination. Back to the future, says Christine. Back to the future. Something's odd. Something is not making sense. My solar plexus is literally rejecting all of this. It's rejecting all of this. Oh, here he is. Here he is. I'm not going to waste a moment. Here he is. He's just getting into his seat. Warren Thornton. Yes, he's with us, kids. He's with us. How are you, Warren?
Hello, Sonia. How are we?
Oh, very, very good. Fabulous to have you with us, because I really want to drill down on what have been some of the big reveals with the military industrial complex in 2024. And of course, you do absolutely phenomenal work geopolitically as a journalist. You really do. I want to show you some faces and get your feedback on them. Let's start with this one. What do you think about this man in 2024?
Well, this man is just completely off the charts, isn't he? I mean, as far as anybody's concerned, he is invading everywhere. He must be the only world leader that has invaded 5 countries at the same time. When you look at Syria, you look at, what he's doing there. And of course, we had the idiotic Piers Morgan turning around and saying, how terrible it is, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Not a mention, not a peep. And he was saying how terrible it is with Keir Starmer, what's happened with the women. And yet, that there are so many women have been badly treated because he's obviously let all sorts of things happen. But not one murmur about the thousands of women that Netanyahu has actually killed.
Right.
So just goes to show how bad the mainstream media is. This guy is.
And how much power. And how much power. I got into a lot of trouble in 2024 for making comments about how kind of Zionist friendly media is and the influence of this man. But so the thing is obviously, as you say, he's been responsible for invading multiple countries. But is he the one in power?
I don't think he is. I think this is the agenda that they have. It always strikes me, I don't know whether it's ever anybody's ever boiled it down to the point that once Israel was made into that enclave, and let's face it, it's not a homeland for Jews. It never has been. Jewish people existed in Palestine alongside Arabs and Christians with no problems whatsoever before 1840.
Because they're all Semites, right?
Exactly. When people say you're an anti-Semite, well, that's basically Arab language.
Yes.
So calling somebody an anti-Semite is an absolutely ridiculous trope. It's like racism nowadays. It means absolutely nothing.
Right,
I think people that use the word anti-Semite, Sonia, really don't know the meaning of the word, to be honest with you.
I completely agree with you. But what I do know is that somehow this man seems to have an inordinate amount of influence on politicians all around the world, all tied up in their globalist mess, right? And so we definitely know that he has some influence, even if he isn't the ultimate influence. What about this? President Zelensky, of course, Sir Keir Rodney Starmer, you made that comment about the grooming gangs. And of course, they only ever care about the so-called grooming gangs, raping gangs. They only ever care about them when other people care about them, because they haven't cared about them so far. But what about Zelensky? How much money can we afford to give anymore? We can't, surely. We've given billions already, haven't we? And people object to it.
Well, isn't it incredible that they've actually taken the money away from the pensioners in the winter? And of course, they've kept their own money, the politicians, and they have given that money to Zelensky. And we continue to fund a war that is unwinnable. If you look at we were talking about 4,722 square kilometers that they've lost in a year. I mean, that is unsustainable. We can't build the weapons. Russia can build the weapons. They have more people. They have better equipment. And of course, they can build it faster. Which part of that does Starmer think he's going to win? And here he is pushing Eastern European countries into wanting to put their troops in harm's way as well.
And of course, where would 2024 be without our boogeyman, or our bogeyman, rather? Putin. Is he the devil incarnate, Warren?
He's not. I'll tell you what he is. He's one who believes, if ever you saw the interview he did with Tucker Carlson for the first half an hour, he gave us all a history lesson about what was properly Russia and everything else. Now, he's one of those who believes that some of these countries should go back underneath Russia. I absolutely understand what he's saying. But he has been very, very patient. And in fact, if he doesn't take the 8 oblasts, everybody is talking this peaceful nonsense about he will take the 4 oblasts that he already holds. No, he won't. He'll take the 8 oblasts, including Odessa and Mykolaiv, because if he doesn't, the people who are Russian speaking in those oblasts will not forgive him for it. So those 8 oblasts, the denazification of literally of Ukraine, and no NATO in Ukraine ever, and that includes peacekeeping troops. If you put peacekeeping troops in Ukraine, he will treat them as combatants. And this guy, there are 52 countries supplying NATO and Ukraine with the weapons, and so far he's beating every single one of them on his own.
It's astonishing, isn't it? Now, I don't need to tell you, you more than most people know that what this is about is a perpetual war, right? Obviously, for the military industrial complex. Is this the next one?
I think it
That's
might
sad.
well be.
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. I mean, very, very simply, Syria now is going to be an open cesspool because it was sort of like Gaddafi, and also when you had, various people like Saddam Hussein. They kept the should we say, the slightly divergent lunatics at bay. And of course, now Syria is going to be completely, should we say, it's a breadbasket of lunatics now, because you literally have Israel in there, you have Erdogan in there, who you couldn't trust basically to roll straight dice if his life depended on it. You've got Erdogan in there, you've got Israel in there, you've got America in there, you've got the Germans actually wanting to talk to people about, various things, resources that are there, because they've obviously cut the gas pipeline. And of course, Germany's economy is going to go even further down the tubes now that the EU have turned around and said that there's no more gas from Russia whatsoever. So Ukraine have played along. And of course, everybody will want Syria's resources now.
And what about this man? Is he here to save us, or is he just part of the same old, same old?
Well, we're sort of on the fence, aren't we, Sonia? I mean, when it comes to Israel, he sees China as a threat. The Ukraine peace deal is not going to be as easy as he thinks it is. I know he wants to. But if I was Donald Trump, I'd walk away from NATO. Of course, he's being courted quite heavily by NATO. But he will literally, he had a meeting, or his representatives had a meeting with Russia the other day. There was a secret flight, went from Russia to America. And of course, he was asking what the Russians would want. So not what Zelensky wants, but what the Russians would want. And of course, the Ukrainians aren't going to agree to that. The EU are not going to agree to that. He's in for a very tough time. He's going to have to be very, very strong to end the war in Ukraine, because nobody wants that war to end.
Warren, am I being overly optimistic in believing that in 2024 there was more, it became more transparent who were the baddies and who were the goodies? I have people on my street who generally like, Daily Mail readers, Sun readers or whatever, but mainstream media readers and observers who are saying there's things wrong here. We don't want to give any more money to Ukraine. We don't want to send weapons to Israel. It feels like an awakening is taking place, or is that just me?
No, you're absolutely right. There are people everywhere, all around the world, that are listening to wonderful commentators such as yourself. I mean, your listeners are above, shall we say, definitely in the bright zone, shall we say, on their knowledge and things.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it is wonderful to see, because, the work of yourself and various other people who are highlighting what's going on. And this is why Keir Starmer wants to kill the internet, why everybody wants to kill the internet, for the simple fact that the truth is out there. People are waking up, and people are looking at Ukraine and going, no, thank you. I'd much rather take care of the people in my country. But if you do that sort of thing, of course, then Alex Soros gets on a plane and has your election disbanded like they did in Romania.
We are the light, says Christine. I believe that you have brought some light to us, which I truly appreciate, because it's absolutely grotesque, some of the things that you have to report on, unfortunately. It's about the worst excesses of humanity, isn't it? War. Really awful. But we do see light on the horizon, don't we, Warren? So everybody can catch you at warrenthornton.com. I will put a link in the description for that. Let me just put my teeth back in, Warren. I'm having one of those mornings as it is. But I wish you a wonderful 2025. Thank you for joining us and giving us an overview of what has taken place.
Thank you very much indeed. And can I just say a very happy and prosperous new year to everybody who watches you and listens to you. And God bless you. Keep up the good work.
Hallelujah to that. God bless you too, sweetheart. Everybody, Warren Thornton. Yes, he's amazing. Take good care of yourself, Warren. Lovely to see you. Wonderful. Wonderful to see him. Yes, I know you were happy to see him. Yes, they're all crimson posh suits. We're so easily fooled by images. I like that. The bright zone, says Teresa. We have to be bright and cheery. We've got a busy show and lots of wonderful guests because I really want other people's, this obviously the thing about Wake Up is always about bringing in lots of different voices because I don't want it to be just about me. No. It's not that kind of show. And one of the voices that I'm absolutely delighted to have join us is somebody that I've enjoyed spending time with and enjoyed getting to know in 2024. And here she is, lovely Charlotte Binns, aka the Baroness. How are you, Charlotte?
Good morning. All the better for seeing you.
Oh, look at you, sweetheart. You look absolutely wonderful. A bit of background, everybody. Charlotte is my former producer at today's News Talk. And I say this absolutely in all honesty, the best producer that I've ever worked with. Truly the best producer. And what was so amazing is you were a relative newbie to the job, but you came in with such brilliant, fresh ideas and how we could do this. You're just generating ideas on a constant basis. And I hope to work again with you one day, sweetheart. 100%. I really do. Absolutely lovely. And you're currently working with David Icke, aren't you, at Iconic? What are you doing there?
Yeah, well, I'm not actually doing producer role just yet. I'm trying to up the social media game. So I'm actually doing marketing, which I've never done before. But when TNT closed abruptly, I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? Where do I go? I can't return to Normiville no matter what. It was almost, thank you, Ian. It was almost, am I going to be an Amazon delivery driver or to find where I'm going next? So yeah, hopefully the longevity at Iconic will be about 2025 and see what comes.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that, actually. I truly am glad to hear that. So you are here to talk about something that has been on many people's tongues over the last year, right? Because it's a bizarre story. And I think that when we're reflecting on 2024, we should also reflect on the stories that have been literally like we've been swamped by, right? Has been hit every angle. And the one that you chose, I thought was so spot on. And it was to do with essentially the royal illnesses that we were told so much about. And it was so curious, wasn't it? Because let's do a little bit of background into this. And that is, it started, I think, around March, didn't it? When we were... It became evident that news agencies were pulling a picture that Kate Middleton, aka Catherine, who's married to the man who will be king, uploaded a picture of her with her children, and news agencies said that it was essentially fraudulent because there were so many photoshopped issues with it. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, well, I think it started December 2023 when
right.
Told that she'd been, I think it was abdominal surgery. She'd been in hospital.
That's it.
And all that. And then there was a long period of time where it was like a where's Kate, hashtag where's Kate, all that kind of thing. There were no news coming from Kensington Palace. Then I think this one came after. So if you remember.
Oh, is it? This is the after one, is it?
The first dodgy picture was of Carol Middleton driving her home, apparently, from the hospital. Do you remember? And it was blurred. One of those, it didn't look like her in the slightest. She looked.
Oh,
hi.
Sorry, that was my fault. That was my fault. No, you're absolutely right. And this is what's brilliant, right? Is about having somebody take me back, and because they led us a merry dance. Do you remember that image that apparently surfaced at a farm shop, which was supposed to be with William, but it was actually her, Kate's body double, wasn't it?
I think it was after the picture that you just showed. So the picture you just showed, I think there was like 6 fingers on George's hand, and then look at it's crossing his fingers in a way that's impossible. And then the Associated Press had to withdraw it because they said it wasn't a real picture. And then Kensington Palace, on behalf of Kate, I know too much about this, don't I?
Thank God.
That she likes to play with Photoshop. Now, anyone who knows like what an AI generated image is or was doing back then, they're a bit more advanced than at the beginning of last year. They couldn't get the fingers right at all for some reason. So it's not like she was playing around with, you know, the blurs and the whatever. It wasn't a real photo, in my opinion. So then came the farm shop picture, which was all on the front page of every newspaper, shows that she's happy, she's smiling. Again, blurred, you couldn't really make out the facial features. Onlookers said that they were stunned to see her and all this kind of stuff. But it was just inviting more and more speculation, which I think is probably on purpose. You know, look at what we've got with the South Pole cover-up and even the Nicola Bulley thing from the year before. That was just inviting speculation and, you know, commentary online that was crazy conspiracy theories, and which tied into the online harms bill, perhaps.
Brilliant recollections there. See, this is exactly why I'm so happy you joined us, because sometimes when we get such a bombardment, it's difficult to kind of recall the timeline. But you're absolutely right. It was one level of subterfuge after another. And it was also weird, wasn't it, that we were told that she had cancer, because there were people coming out, surgeons, saying it's a really weird way to discover that someone has cancer by doing abdominal surgery. So that was weird, wasn't it, from the start?
Well, let's go back to the Queen dying. So, you know, it's always been said, hasn't it, that the royals have long lives and don't get cancer and da-da-da. And when the Queen died, allegedly she died of cancer in the last few days. And then we had Charles obviously come out, and Kate, and then so the Kate thing was pre-cancerous cells, so she's going through chemotherapy for that. And I mean, I've never heard of that. I'm not a doctor, and you know, I can't claim to be an expert, but it's a bit odd. And also, it just reminds me of what the late Anna de Busseret came out and said, who, God rest her soul, also died of cancer. She was mortified that when Charles was announced that he had cancer, that he was going through some sort of natural remedy. She said, well, why can't we know about what this natural remedy is? And
right.
Then,
I found it impossible, because also we heard at the same time that Charles also had cancer. And I found it impossible we're told that Kate had chemotherapy, but we also were told recently that what she actually had was precancerous cells. Now, I made a film called The Business of Cancer. Precancerous cells is not cancer. Many people who have smears and whatever they have to test for these things are told, oh, there's a potential here for precancerous cells. Charlotte, let's go into this a little bit more. Any thoughts about what might really have been going on? Because many people do not believe the official story.
Well, let's not forget, around the same time as the mysterious disappearance, there was the Thomas Kingston mysterious death. It was
Lady Gabrielle Windsor's husband, who was said to have died as a consequence of taking serotonin, right? Or not serotonin, sertraline, the antidepressant drug. Got you? Okay.
Well, conspiracy theories went wild, you know, because it was William having an affair? Was she having an affair? Was there something more going on there? And I have heard from other sources, and this is, again, not official, but that she was going through some sort of breakdown and going down an eating disorder route. And, well, I don't want to go any further because I don't mean it.
But that's something we've heard a lot of in the background, isn't it? We've heard a lot, because there's no denying that she is thin to the point of skeletal. Right. Yeah. She's extremely thin. And we've heard in the background, it is a talk at parties and places that we frequent that what was actually being dealt with was an eating disorder, and she was sent away to deal with it. Right?
Yes. Yeah. And apparently eating like tissue paper as a result of suppressing her hunger. So, well, and look at what, you know, Diana went through a very similar public thing too. So, and you know, all this speculation is indeed speculation, but they've got a history of covering things up, and we know how they work. So,
and we're also been told, I think the other interesting thing is, yes, Curly Crew, we do have some proper conversations around. We don't mess around. We don't skirt around the edges. We go in on what people are actually talking about, right? But
I just got another one, Sonia.
Go on, go.
Another weird scenario around all that time. So go back to the picture of Kate with Carol Middleton. Do you remember? Because it just that much news goes by and you forget what's happened, don't you? That she was allegedly in a car accident at one point around that time. Carol Middleton, do you remember that?
Oh my gosh, you're bringing it all back now. This was so weird.
Yeah.
This was like, I mean, you don't have to be conspiratorially minded to say something's really odd with two major players of the royal family. We're suddenly being told that they have cancer. There's no way on earth that Charles would have had chemotherapy. No way on earth at all, right? Yeah. I highly doubt that Kate did. And also, I have to say, I've dealt with a lot of people who've had chemotherapy. They don't look as well as she looks, right? And I think that is a significant factor.
Yeah, and they also played out whether it was done on purpose or not. I think she was supposed to reappear at an Easter event last year. And even the media bods were saying on Twitter, I remember at the time saying, sorry, that distracts me, saying that we get all the conspiracy theories will be shut down and she'll be at this event at Easter, and then she wasn't. So then there was also, let's not forget, that people just thought she was dead.
I mean, honestly, the thing is I wanted to leave this to you to recount. So I didn't go into this story too much, reflecting on it myself. And now you're saying stuff like they're saying today, you can't make it up, but they fed it to us. Yeah. And they also, and the thing is no disrespect to anybody with cancer, but I've never known people with cancer who are working to be able to have the luxury of taking like 6 months off either. That was also in its own way really interesting. And didn't she get an award as well at the end of the year for having cancer as well?
Did she?
Yeah, I think she's going to be awarded with something. Yeah, absolutely. But we're hardly surprised. So all of that's really interesting. So definitely there was a body double at the farm shop, which all the mainstream media promoted. Definitely. So these are facts. Definitely the image had been seriously, significantly digitally altered. And the thing is, Charlotte, I'm not being funny, right? But that's the royal family. They want us to believe that Kate, who would be queen, did her own Photoshop and then just put it out without it going through checks and balances. Did you even believe that story?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, if anyone just to look at it, it didn't look real. I mean, not even mention the video. So the video when she was on the garden bench, do you remember? And there was she looked robotic in many ways, and there was lots of analysts who were picking it apart, and the stripes on the top, and it just didn't look right. She didn't sound right. She was very still. It was bizarre.
I think Lorraine makes a good point here. There's nothing like saying someone has cancer, shut people down to saying anything against them. And that is the reality, because they've now, it was very much like, oh, poor Kate. And forget everything else that's going on in the country. The fact that we're cutting winter fuel allowances for people, and these royal family are living in grand opulence with more homes than they can possibly use. But suddenly it's like, poor Kate, poor Charles and everything. A lot of sympathy was conveyed towards them, wasn't it?
Yeah, how would you like it if you're? Yeah, there's a lot of going on social media. Probably a bot farm after bot farm set up just to react to people speculating, which I guess is what they want.
And also, and I cannot ignore the fact that in the comments, people are referring to the issue of the allegations of William having an affair. Do you have anything to comment on that?
Well, I wouldn't put it past any of them. They're just, it probably was. She probably was. Probably
right. It's a given, isn't it, though, for the king and the king's men to have affairs? It's a given. Yeah. And Foppo has had cancer and survived. Life is what it is. Yes. And good to hear that. Yeah. Good to hear that you have survived, because many people can survive. And but the thing is I think what's important about this story, and why it's important to reflect on it, is because I think it's an example of how the public are manipulated by the media.
Yeah, and there's been so many examples. That's why when I even thought of this topic to come on to talk to you today about, I thought, God, there's been that much happened since in terms of manipulation that's still ongoing now with recent events. It's just one thing after another. but we're here for it and we can see through it, can't we?
We are absolutely here for it. Thank you for joining me to reflect on this. And somebody makes a comment, and I get it. They're saying that a podcast was really upset with me for even questioning it, saying it's wrong. But we have to be able to question things if things don't make sense, because we know, certainly from the last since 2020, people have woken up exponentially to the fact that media has been used to manipulate us and to coerce us. So we have to question it, don't we, Charlotte?
Absolutely, 100%.
Any plans for 2025?
See you more often.
Oh, I like the sound of that. Everybody, this is the very beautiful Charlotte Bin. She is also known as the Baroness Online. I will put a link to her X in the description because she's a brilliant tweeter and we love her very much. And I personally am so grateful to have her in my life. Charlotte, love you, darling. Happy 2025. Wonderful to see you. What a star. What a star for coming on and reminding us in that. I literally had not gone over the timeline properly. And she's just reminded us. We have to question things. Soul Sam wants to know if the Baroness is planning to include musical acts to her portfolio. Oh, Charlotte, I would take that Shin is interested in you doing some work together. Shin is extremely talented. In fact, I'm going to play something from Shin in a minute. Yes, I am. I'm just getting some more water here. Thanks, Charlotte. Good to see you again. The Baroness. Cheers, Charlotte. Thanks, Charlotte. By 2026, Big Pharma expects cancer drug sales to hit $320 billion, Markuson tells us. Insane. Tim says you are far right if you question anything. Yeah, absolutely. The level of madness that is taking place. Right, people, we are not messing around today. We are not messing around. And let us bring in Birthday Girl. It's Birthday Girl. Happy birthday.
Thank you. A whole year until anything else. So I'll just cram it all into Christmas, New Year and birthday. Thanks, Mum and Dad. And then that's it for the year. So yes, it's my day. Thanks,
whoop,
Sonia.
whoop. Zozo in the house, says Teresa. Indeed. And look, where would it be without Shin has composed a new song for you. It's over 5 minutes long. Of course, Shin received it first thing this morning. She said in the early hours of the morning. So no doubt you will get the full length copy, but let's have a little blast of a little bit of it. You ready?
Oh, excited.
We're saying happy birthday to the girl so crazy bunny, Scottish Freak Show, Synchronized Souls. Here we go, 2025, here we go.
It is boss indeed, Beasley. It is indeed boss. You've got Zoe all up in her feels right now. Listen, darling, first of all, I wanted to tell you that I personally appreciate you very much for being obviously one half of our modding duo, our dynamic duo, along with Shin, who we've just heard. But you also are an entity in your own right. You're not just a mod on round here. You also have a podcast, Synchronized Souls, which has gone from strength to strength over the last year. And in fact, you're doing your own review tonight, aren't you? Yes. Your own review tonight. Talk to us a little bit about your review.
Well, I think it's all went a bit crazy on the Synchronized Souls podcast. We didn't think it was going to gain so much traction. 2024 was a make or break year for the channel. Obviously, we lost a huge part of the community. We lost Pewey in March, and he also helped me start the channel. So that was I felt like the carpet had been ripped from under my feet, to be honest with you, Sonia, and grief is really hard, especially when it's a sudden death. But you've got to take the positive out the negative, and I just thought, do you know what, Pewey, I'm doing this for you, and I just powered on. I was like, Craig, let's do this. I've got Teresa, who you've just put on the screen. She's now telling her story. I've got Shin on the show playing her live music. Do you know what I want? I want to just have a community that we all just support each other. People are too quick to bring people down, especially in the truth community as such. We need to hold each other's crowns up. We need to support each other. And I used to find that after your shows, when you used to do your other shows, everybody was a bit lost afterwards. They're like, oh, Like, what are we going to do now? You know, Sonia's not here for another couple of days. So that's why I started the show, because I was like, we need to keep the vibrations going. We need
Love
to have
it.
somewhere else to go and connect, you know?
Love it.
So, yeah.
Absolutely love it. Oh my God, you should see the sheer volume of messages. Can you
Oh,
turn
I'm
up
not
your
looking.
mic a smidge? I don't want to mess too much with
Yeah.
it. Just a little
No,
bit.
let's do this. Hold on. Where is, I should know this.
I think that's
Mic
that's
volume.
sounding loud already.
Is that
I think.
better?
Yeah, let's leave it like that. Well said, Zoe. Zoe, you are the best, says Beasley.
Thank you.
So
Thank
today, of course, is all about kind of big revelations that we've been through either in public life, but yours is a very personal journey that you've been on, right? Give people a
Yeah.
little bit of background of some of the challenges that you feel that you have dealt with in your life and have overcome in 2024.
Do we have long enough? No, I'm only joking. For 2024, as you probably know, in 2023, I started with Campbell, which was like it's the Philomedusa bicolor frog, and it's not illegal, it's totally legal, and you put it into gateways in your skin, and it really helps you purge a lot of energy. But for me, it was the goodness of the frog. Now I've done it 5 times, and this year has been about me healing more, but I found I was looking out with Sonia. I was kind of thinking of psychedelics, I was thinking of retreats, you buy things, I got more cards, and I just realized that everything is inside. We don't need to look outside. We need
Right.
to use discernment and come back within, meditate. I know people are like, oh, meditate's demonic. It's not. Just take that time to sit with yourself in silence. Like you said the other day, Sonia, an amazing idea came to you as you were peeling the potatoes.
Yeah, it was to bring you on here. I was
Well, yeah, that's a brilliant idea.
It's a brilliant idea. I was literally like, but because, and you pointed out to me that sometimes some of your ideas come when you're doing something really mundane and you're just in the moment, right? But I was literally peeling potatoes. I was like, oh, wait, it's Zoe's birthday on Friday. She should come on in the spiritual spot. And there you go. Yes.
Nice.
No, she's not Welsh, Craig Campbell. Stop misleading people in the chats. Charlie, she's not Welsh. She's Scottish, darling. She's Scottish.
My brother.
But the thing is, I've seen you grow, and I've seen you grow because I've had you on podcasts before, and you've been much more meek, shall we say? Whereas now it's so obvious that you're blossoming, for want of a less cliched description. But do you feel as if you are?
You know what, Sonia? I feel I'm at my happiest when I'm online now. It's mad. I'm so against the internet and like artificial intelligence and all this. But when I'm streaming and doing my Oracle card stream, I am just so happy. And I come off and I'm buzzing. And I would stream all day if I could. If people would put up with me sitting talking rubbish all day, I would. It lifts other people's vibrations. And I'm not being funny, and this is no offense against anybody else that does like spiritual coaching and stuff. It's very expensive to try and get a little bit of spiritual guidance or go on retreats. They're not cheap. And I just feel that giving a little bit of the free oracle cards gives everybody a chance to start on a spiritual journey or to get that confirmation, and they don't have to dig deep. And obviously, if you like it, you can buy me a coffee, and I'm not going to say no. I have to support the channel as well. But yeah, just giving that little bit of guidance without saying £400 please for a guided meditation, or it's just keeping it real.
It is. And the thing is, I think people are so sick of this whole thing now where a lot of so-called spiritual people have come out, but at the end of it is the retreat, the by the rocks, all this kind of stuff. And people are really, really sick of that, right? Zoe, you are an inspiration to many, says our Kath. Absolutely.
Kath.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. You're not from Glasgow. Are you originally from Edinburgh? Because Craig Campbell is literally trying to just run people amok out there in the comments.
I was going to go in the comments there, but I'm just not going to, right? No,
No.
I am born and bred Edinburgh, but I have been commented that I sound more like I'm from Stirling, which is more the west side of us, but each to their own. Craig just sounds. You'll hear Craig soon.
Yeah, he's a troublemaker.
I
know exactly. But here's the thing: is that, and I think this is interesting, is I've encountered a lot of spiritual people in my life, and I come from a spiritual background. But some of the people who claim to be the most spiritual are they're almost sort of anti-spirituality, right? They lose their crap over small things. They don't seem to
His
adhere to
ego.
any of the things that they talk about at all. Whereas that's not, I've now known you for, well, it must be maybe 4 or 5 years, right? And
Yep.
I've
Yep.
gotten to know you more over the last couple of years. And
Yep.
that's not my experience with you at all. You are that person. You
I
are
think
a
his
spiritual
ego.
person.
I am, and somebody said in the comments a couple of weeks ago, like, we all give each other labels, like, I'm a Reiki practitioner, I'm a light worker, I'm a
Right,
starseed.
right.
Drop all that. We're all just souls. We're all just here having the human experience. Some are maybe been here a few more times than others, and maybe no more knowledge and wisdom, like wee fat Shug, who is amazing with his wisdom, I've got to
Oh,
say, shouting him out. I've learned so much from him. And I just feel that ego gets in the way with these people that want to be spiritual coaches and teachers and whatever, and the money starts coming in, and then the communities build, and they're kind of idolized. Whereas I would just be like, stop idolizing me. Like, I'm just me, you know? Oh, Sukesh. I'm sorry,
one thing you'll
Sukesh.
always get
Oh,
with Zoe is her authenticity. Once she knows you have earned her time, she'll support you no matter what. Yes, I hear that.
try.
Yeah, you are. You've been tremendous, actually, and you've brought a lot of survivors together as well, because it's very
Yeah.
hard. I've been on the road that you've been on, and it's very hard for me to cover all the subjects that I do and still be that
Mhm.
person there. And it's so great that you're able to be that kind of hub for survivors. Really, really important, because survivors are not
Thank you.
always easy, are they?
No, no. I mean, I have my bad days. I have my manic days and worrying. Yesterday, I was like, I'm nervous about going on to Sonia's show. Today, I felt brand new. We all have days that we vent and we project on other people. And working with, when I say working, I mean just having that whole community. Like, I don't know, it is hard because there's a lot of mental health issues as well that goes alongside with being traumatized and abused, chaos, as I like to call it. And I think if we just support each other on those days, even saying, you know, you sound a bit hyper, do you maybe want to try and ground yourself a little bit? Maybe go into nature. It's just planting the seeds without scaring them away. So it is. I mean, people go to university to do this, and I don't. I just do it through experience. And I think that's what makes me a good healer, because I've been through so much that I could never, ever judge anybody. And I know that everything does get better. You know, even when you're in your worst state of mind, things do get fixed and things do get better. So that's my message for 2025.
Well, we love that. Do you have any
Mhm.
kind of spiritual people, icons, gurus, for want of a better description, that you look up to?
No, well, no.
Interesting.
Dolores Cannon, I don't idolize her. I just absolutely resonate with everything that she says. I did used to kind of idolize, is it Gayborn Mate or Matty?
Oh, yeah.
Until he went all jabs on us and said that people that refused the jabs had a psychotic illness.
Oh, yes,
So
I
I was a
remember
bit
that.
like, oh, really?
Odd for a
So yeah,
spiritual person, right?
discernment, Sonia, discernment.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to make
No.
everything all right. It's up to you. Stay in your lane, switch off from news and everything. Just keep your life light, focus on your family, support them, love your community, service to each other. That's the only thing that you can do, in my
And
eyes.
just to point out, Dilip, yes, there is a Dolores Cahill, different one. Absolutely different one. Dolores
Yes,
Cahill is the doctor who spoke out about jabs, and Dolores Cannon is the spiritual creation.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
absolutely. Are you enjoying it, the Count of Jermaine? Oh, dopamine fueled Sonia shows. I don't know what that means.
Absolutely.
That wasn't the one I was supposed to click
Brilliant.
on that. Thank you. We appreciate that. Yes, we're
Thank you.
looking back in order to look forward. And I think that spirituality is something that constantly gets overlooked in media.
Mhm.
There's not enough attention placed to it, which is why we do try and place some attention on it. And the thing about me is I don't just have anybody mod in this show, right? I have people that that I can trust, but also that I can align with, right? To know that
Mhm.
when they're making decisions on behalf of me, that I can trust them to make that. And Charlotte is not Charlotte. I've just seen the name Charlotte in the comments. And Zoe is one of them, and Shin is the other. Absolutely. So, and we've seen Zoe blossom and grow, as I say, over 2024. Love that message moving forward into 2025. How are you going to spend your day?
Well, I'm being treated to an absolute slap-up meal by my son, very expensive one. And then we're going to go on the big wheel because nobody done it when you came up to Edinburgh, and it's the last day of the big wheel in Edinburgh. So I'm going to go on it. I might live stream from it, and then later on, drum roll please, we have Only Cans review of 2024. You're going to see Craig, my wee brother from another mother, chat about it in a wee bit. But if you could just do me a wee favour, guys. Sorry, Sonia, I'm going to totally overtake your show.
Go.
Could you just go and subscribe to the Synchronized Souls podcast and give me a little birthday present by subscribing? Because I would absolutely love that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I've put a link already in the description, I
Excellent.
believe, to the Synchronized Soul podcast. So it's very easy to quickly subscribe. Let's boost up those figures today as a birthday present. We really appreciate you being here, my darling. I think we've got to bring in Shin's song once again to take you out, really. Let's bring it in.
We're saying happy birthday to the girl so crazy bunny, Scottish Frank show, Synchronized Souls. Here we go, 2025. Here we go.
Happy birthday to you, sweetheart. Lots of wonderful comments in the chat for you. Of course, we love you too. Wonderful to have you on the same team. Really, it is, everybody.
Thank
This
you,
is
Sonia.
the very, very glorious Zoe Johnston, also known as Crazy Bunny. You are known as Crazy Bunny because you do actually have a real life Crazy Bunny, don't you, darling?
Yeah, I actually have a rabbit that just jumps about. He's a little free roamer. I'm not an actual crazy bunny. So
No,
Thanks
she's
for
not. No, she's really
confirming that.
not. Lovely to see you. Happy Earth Day,
Thank
darling
you.
Zoe.
Thank
Everybody
you.
join their
Thank you.
podcast later, please, people. Everybody join there.
Please.
Lovely to see you,
Please.
darling. Take
I'm
good
going
care
back
of
to
yourself.
work.
She's going back to work now. She's back in the live
Love
chat
you.
now. Lovely to
Thanks,
see her.
guys.
Oh,
Bye,
what
honey.
a
Bye, honey. Thank you,
joy.
Sonia.
Bye,
Love
darling.
you.
Love
Bye,
you too.
darling.
How lovely is that? I'm loving today's show. I want to do this more often, where I just bring in people for bursts so they can tell me what's going on in their world, because I think it's really important, right, to get outside takes on, because I have my own views of what's taken place in this world on whatever level, whether that's earthly or spiritual, whatever it is. But I do love the input of other people. I think it's so vital. Oh, I'm back. She's back. Happy birthday. And happy birthday to Peter's mum as well today. Happy birthday. Two wonderful people today. Two wonderful people. And let's add somebody else to the stage. Good morning, David English. How are you?
I'm very good, Sonia. How are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Wonderful to have you with us. Also describes himself as proud Englishman, pro-liberty, pro-sovereignty, anti-communist. You formerly wrote for Epoch Times as a journalist, of course, and you're a commentator these days. And one of the things that you commentate on very regularly is the issue of immigration and what was happening last year in 2024. David, you joined us also at one stage to talk about some of the events of 2024. When we look back at it now in the round, what happened in Southport, what happened with Peter Lynch, all of these different things. What are your immediate thoughts about that?
It has to happen. There is essentially a sickness at the heart of the nation that's been going on for a very, very long time. And one of the manifests of that is they hate their own people. It's a self-loathing. I mean, it was basically written throughout the works of Marx. Marx was a very self-loathing individual. And that's basically transferred to the UK. The root of communism, financially and ideologically, was in the UK. And it's corrupted everything within the UK, probably more notably the Labour Party than the Conservatives, because the Labour Party is more aligned with it. But there is this thing of just the willful destruction of the United Kingdom and the West in general, and it's masqueraded as, oh, well, it happened to the Roman Empire. But the Roman Empire was almost an error-forced decline. This is a managed decline. It's completely different.
Yes, it really is. And of course, a lot of the trigger for what's taken place this year in the UK is not just Starmer coming into so-called power on less than 20% of the votes, but it has to be the senseless, brutal murder of 3 little girls in Southport at the end of July, a school holiday club they were at. And of course, at this moment in time, it's a live case. We have to be careful what we say about Axel Ruda Cabana, who has been accused of their murder. But this death, this pointless murder was the catalyst for a lot of anger, wasn't it, David?
Yeah, yes, it was. I think the anger has been there for a long time. I think it's been there since they blew up the buses in London. And I think that this just tipped the point. I think it's been growing since COVID. We knew we were being lied to, not by one side, but by both. And everybody has to remember that whatever the Conservatives did, the Labour Party were calling for more and worse and harder.
Absolutely. Faster, harder lockdowns they wanted. Yep. True.
So there is this growing sense that suddenly the scales have been lifted from people's eyes and they realize that the establishment actually no longer works for them and seeks to shackle them instead. And this was just a point where it was, if you understand that the rest of Europe managed to receive a terror threat that meant they climbed down all Taylor Swift events across Europe for that period of time, but somehow in the UK it was absent. And then this goes and happens. It is. And we have a strong thing about protection of the innocents in England and in the West in general, which is why the West was able to reach the height it did, because it protected women and children. This was senseless and it was avoidable, but it was the cover-up that we were being gaslit. We know the characteristic traits of native acts of violence. We know what they are. We know the characteristic traits that aren't from us. And our guesses were correct, and we were basically gaslit that they weren't, and then it's all subsequently come out that we were correct. And it's just too much. It's too much for people to take. When the common man has no voice, he resorts to violence.
Absolutely. And actually, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X both commented on that the riot is the voice of the dispossessed. And so there were people protesting. One of them was this man, Peter Lynch, and actually his sign says nothing that people like you and I have a problem. I don't have a problem with that. He's absolutely right. There is corruption. It is to do with WEF. It's to do with Davos. It's to do with, well, he goes on, doesn't he? Who, all of those things. This man is now dead. We were told that he hanged himself. He was imprisoned for protesting. You were as upset about that as I was, weren't you?
Yeah, I think it's disgusting, and it should be labelled down as a death of the regime. And I think we have to really, although they may be in suits, but they still have crocodile smiles. This is a regime that we're under, and I think that should be looked at. Look, that gentleman said nothing that various online pundits haven't been saying for 10, 15 years. Right. He didn't do anything physically. He didn't incite any hatred. He raised his voice to a policeman, which when I was a lad, they would have just laughed at you. So there's two things there. What is wrong with the constabulary, and why are we having such overreach? But then why was a person who was obviously physically vulnerable and suffering with all sorts of problems put in a position like that and jailed for essentially voicing very loudly and very strongly and in a moment of passion an opinion, which has never been a crime in England for a millennia?
Right. In fact, we talk about how important it is to our democracy to have freedom of speech. And then we apparently brought in a man who didn't think that way at all. Now, some people question whether Peter Lynch really took his own life or whether being put into a prison with a certain demographic of people, that there may have been other issues. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, if you block all exits, then the rat only has one way to run. So they basically, they know what they're doing, and they're doing the same with Mr. Robinson, and they're hoping for a particular outcome. There will be people within that organization, i.e. the Labour Party, who will be like, well, good riddance, get rid of him. And I think that type of mindset needs to be rooted out. It's disgusting. It's one thing for a child murderer or a serial murderer to be sort of oft in prison. It's something different for someone who just has a different political opinion. But how many years have we allowed the death to Tory signs to hang from windows around the country? Right. The hatred of the opposite by the left has been tolerated for so long, and it's a murderous hatred.
Yeah, it's odd. I come from the left, and I was raised in a very sort of lower working class background. It was all about, Labour was very much apparently the party for us. And we've discovered that isn't the case at all. But I'm politically homeless. Has any of this changed you politically? What's happened over this last year?
No, I don't see politics in that way. I see politics purely as a vehicle. I actually think that the heavy political leaning we have in the world right now is a symptom of a decayed society. Politics should be there for the administration of the state and virtually nothing else. I think it is a Machiavellian tactic for those who seek power. I think the power should be within the hands of the people. And I actually prefer the English system. We didn't have the divine right of kings in England. We had a first among equals. If you were poor to be shoddy leader, you were stuck in a field with 10,000 men till you lost your head.
Right.
And I actually prefer that system. So it hasn't changed me politically because I didn't invest in politics that way anyway. To me, it's just a vehicle. And we're heading towards a point of sort of freedom, spiritual, physical, economic freedom. The world might be poorer, it might be different, but people will be happier. And you have to choose whatever is the vehicle that advances the freedom of the people. So, yeah, it didn't change me. And I don't pledge allegiance. I look for, who will get us to the next milestone.
Do you think that some of these stories are us being manipulated and played by media and government working hand in hand together to fulfill larger agendas?
Listen, people manipulate them on either side. All right.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be really, really careful. There are people on the right who clickbait for sensationalism, who fan the flames because they want to see a reaction. They want chaos. They want destruction. There are people on the left who do exactly the same thing for their agenda. We're being more manipulated by the globalists than we are anyone. But there are, they use the term shills. There are dishonest people on either side. So you do have to be quite discerning. And then there are people who will pose as one just to lay the trap, like we've seen with the report about Southport that got so many people jailed. It was a disingenuous report from somebody in Pakistan to create division.
Right. And then, but people were being arrested for it. But people who could afford decent legal representation were being arrested and let go, whereas very working class people were being imprisoned to such a degree they were letting prisoners out in order to accommodate them. What did you think about that?
Well, that's moral turpitude. That's disgusting.
Right.
That just, you can't do that. You're releasing hardened criminals, sex offenders, which were released in order to imprison people who basically just had opinions. Now, I don't condone rioting. I can sometimes see that it is a symptom of other things. The people who were damaging buildings, setting fire to cars and things like that, fine, but this should be applied equally. Why did it take more than 6 months for the people at Manchester Airport to get anything to happen there? Why did it take 4 months for the gentleman who set fire to the bus in Hare Hills? There's all these things. There are literally double standards across the board here.
They actually said, didn't they? Keir Starmer actually said that the police would be working essentially 24/7 to arrest the people who were at these protests. We heard the most senior cop in England and Wales say that even standing on the sidelines and watching it would be seen as an offence to be imprisoned without bail. This all had a chilling effect. But I think you've touched on something else which was absolutely key to 2024, and we heard about it so much. Two-tier Keir. Is it a real thing, David?
Of course it is. He's always had protected groups. He's always had protected interests. This is how he got into the CPS. I mean, the man is a Marxist through and through. It's 17 years old when most boys were chasing girls in short skirts. He was in a communist training camp in Czechoslovakia. The guy, there's something not right with the guy. So this is just not normal behavior. And all the way through, he was a radical lefty lawyer who wanted to subvert the system and protect those client groups. Those client groups include the murderers and the rapists. They include the child molesters. They have always been his protected clients. The same as Khan, they're his protected clients too. So I think, yes, it is a thing. You sympathize with what you can empathize. And I think the deeper they dig into the Labour Party, the more horrendous, disgusting skeletons they will find.
David, I believe that last year was very positive in so many respects, because if nothing else, there was a transparency about so much of the agendas that are taking place. And I think that that bodes well for 2025. What are your thoughts moving forward into this year?
So last January, I said that 2024 will be the year the mask comes off, and I think that's exactly what happened.
Say that.
I
That
did.
is absolutely what happened. Yes.
This year will be the year the curtain comes down and we see where the levers are. We will see what is being pulled by who by the end of this year.
By the end of 2025. So 2024, the mask came off. 2025, we will know who's running the show. Love that.
And
We love that.
This is a point. There's a sea change happening. We've been descended into this hellhole at a rapid pace over the last 4 years. January 2020. January 20th, we'll be pulled out. People are going to have the bends. We're going to come out that fast. We're going to have the bend. We're going to have decompression sickness because we need to be pulled out of 4 years of hell in about 9 months. And I think by the end of this year, it will be laid bare because he has no option. Trump has no option but to actually say, look, because we're at a point where we're going to lose control of the West because nefarious forces have their fingers in so deep. He has no point but to reveal who's behind who.
Wow, I love that. What a brilliant way to end this segment. Thank you so much for joining us, David, and for being a guest on Wake Up. Really appreciate it. Everybody, I will put a link in the description to David's X, or as we call around here, Twitter. Everybody, this is David English. Wonderful to have you with us,
Sonia,
David. Yeah.
Thank you for you being you.
Oh, thank you.
None of these things would be happening without people like you.
Well, likewise.
You put your head above the parapet and your neck on the line and you risked it all. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Happy New Year to you, David.
And you. All the best, Sonia. Thank you.
Lovely to have you with us. Wonderful. How wonderful. What a nice thing to say. Yes, we're getting a proper roundup, aren't we, today? Oh, yes, we are. We are not pulling any punches here. And before I bring in our next guest, I want to make sure that I've got some decent pictures to illustrate what she is saying, because she's a no mess kind of individual. I was actually properly introduced to this incredible powerhouse of a woman by lovely Charlotte, who was with us earlier. And I'd actually admired this woman from afar for a very long period of time because she'd done things that really stood out, that really set her apart. And we need people like that. We need people who are prepared to change the game in our world. And this is one of them. Here she is, the remarkable Madelaine Hawes. How glamorous do you look this morning, Madelaine?
You're too kind. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I was absolutely listening to David English for the last 15 minutes, and I completely align with him. Totally.
The thing is that the interesting thing is David and I would normally be on completely opposite sides of the political fence, but because of the lunatics and the Marxists, right, who are running the show at the moment, people like David and I have come closer together because we realize that there are absolute wrongs in this world, as indeed do you and I. And the thing that binds you and I together are the wrongs involved in abuse, including establishment abuse. But I want to give people some background to you because your pedigree is formidable. Let's bring this up onto the stage. Really important. This headline, bet this takes you back.
I can't see it.
Oh, can you not see it? Sorry.
No.
How odd. I wonder, can you see it if I do that?
No.
That is so odd. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's actually the headline from the newspaper of you, Mother, How I Fought to Put the Paedophile Head Teacher in Prison. The brilliant headline when you first came to my attention, and we did a long form video, which is available, and I'll put a link in the description where Madelaine completely breaks down what happened. But a brief overview, Madelaine nailed the head teacher who had inveigled his way into her family. She was a teacher herself, a music teacher, and he had become this kind of almost substitute father type figure to your sons, hadn't he, in order to be able to abuse them, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, from that moment, I mean, I went on once he said he was guilty. Finally, after a 9-hour interview, I was just so broken. I mean, I was broken. I'd had 19 years of domestic abuse, and of course, he saw that vulnerability because they always do. They smell it like French perfume. And then when he went to the Crown Court, having said he was guilty, he was set free with a £200 fine. And I just hit the wall, and I just said, that's it. I'm going to get it on appeal. It's going to the High Court of Appeal. I was threatened by the police with contempt of court. I said, I don't care. I don't care. That man's going down. And I succeeded. And I mean, anybody can appeal after 28 days, but I don't think people know how. You just write to the Attorney General. And I don't think people knew they could. But I was so enraged. Nothing would stop me. Nothing would stop me.
That is absolute. That's, you know, that is the right kind of, that's the right kind of outrage and indignation, right? It's righteous outrage. It was wrong.
Yeah, you're right, Sonia, because I've was brought up a Catholic, right? And then had a weird religious upbringing. My parents flipped into C of E, then they went back and all that. And denominational stuff, frankly, bores me to witness. But I've never forgotten like a faith. You know what I mean? I do have a faith. And I actually went to see a priest and said, look, by trying to get this guy jailed, am I actually... am I being vengeful? And absolutely not. It's righteous justice. You have to protect other children. And that is, you know, I mean, when you asked me to come on today, you mentioned about what's the great reveal, you know, of the last year. And I think I said to you on a message last night, it's not even a revelation. It's a great frustration. And I do line up there with David English, who said, the mask is off. And I think people now are really beginning to wake up and smell the coffee. But the trouble is, you have a Marxist who runs this country. And absolutely right.
Absolutely.
Dharma, I wouldn't trust him with my dustbin.
I think we're getting marriage invites for you here, Madelaine. Randy wants to know if you're single. Okay, Randy, that is not what... Randy has a parrot and a horse, if that helps, by the way. That is not why she's here. But I tell you what, let's start addressing why she is here, what you've just alluded to. What does this man... Oh, you can't see the images, can you? You're not seeing the images.
I can't see anything. No, describe.
Hugh Edwards.
Oh, the grubby little toad.
Right. So he received that suspended sentence nonsense, right? Completely wrong. He was downloading and making child abuse images, some of them category A. We already knew he'd paid £35,000 to a vulnerable 17-year-old who was sending him images. What are your thoughts about him? He was like the beacon of respectability at the BBC.
Here we go again. The abusive organisations, the BBC. How many times do we have to hear them come out and go, lessons have been learned? They never learn them. We had Jimmy Savile. We had Rolf Harris. We had Stuart, what was his name?
Stuart Hall.
There's been a whole load of them. And then Hugh Edwards. They're like a protected species. And I have never known a case like that. And it smacks of cover-up because the magistrate was, in fact, a Freemason. Now, I have a real problem with these secret societies. Sorry, but I do have a real problem with them. And they can protect each other. I do have a real problem with them. And the magistrate was one. And he should have gone to a Crown Court, and he didn't. And the fact that this grubby toad didn't even give back the money that he had while he was like, waiting for the case.
True.
I mean, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. And then some footballer just takes his kit off and, stupid boy, but then loses his job. I mean, they just don't get it, do they? Outside the BBC, they got a statue of that sculptor who was actually a paedophile and raped his own kids. What's his name? I can't remember. And
Eric Gill. Gill, absolutely, right. Completely wrong, and they won't take it down. They won't
take it down. And if you go on the Freedom of Information Act, Sadiq Khan, what is he doing with an OBE, whatever it is he's got? Oh my gosh! So we reward failure, do we?
Sir Sadiq Khan.
Please
get down on your knees, woman.
God.
That's what they want.
Right. I'm likely to do that anytime soon, aren't I? But if you go on the Freedom of Information Act, the Westminster Council have paid over 50,000, I think maybe 100,000, to have this protected. What is wrong with this man? He's just a weak little toad, as opposed to grubby little toads, as opposed to Keir Starmer, who I cannot tolerate that man at all. And I can tell you why, because years ago, there was a very sad case, you might remember it, of Frances Andrade. Frances Andrade sadly has now passed away. She very sadly took her own life, but she went to Chetham's music school and was abused by the violin teacher there, right? And this goes back about 10 years or more now. And her friends had also been abused by this guy and said, oh, look, we ought to really sort of take him to court. She didn't want to. She was married with 3 boys, didn't want to do it. Anyway, in the end, they persuaded her. So she gets to court. And the barrister says, "You are a liar and a fantasist, aren't you, Mrs. Andrade?" I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. You are a liar and a fantasist." And that aggressive barrister speech still goes on to victims today. It's horrific. And the next day she took her own life. I've never, ever forgotten it, because in another life I was a music teacher. I was head of music. So that really touched me. And, young boys, her sons, awful. Up pops Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer decides then that, he can't possibly allow barristers to speak like this again. We're going to have a round table of people that are going to do a white paper on victims' rights. So I was invited to join, and we sat around. We had 3 sessions on it, and we were going well, when in the distance starts Brexit coming on the horizon, and we have Jeremy Corbyn. And I got home after one of these meetings, and I said to my husband then, I said, "Do you know what?" I said, "He's going to do a runner." And my husband said, "What do you mean?" I said, "He's flaky. He's a flip-flop." I said, "I just sense that he wants to get on the coattails of Corbyn with Brexit and become leader of the Labour Party." And here we are today. And he literally just dropped us. There was no courtesy of an exit route. We went in for the next meeting. He didn't turn up. He will go wherever he feels like going. And he's a real danger and a real problem. Somebody, the media, really need to splash out his background here. Just like David English said, I just do not, I wouldn't trust him with my dustbin.
Can't.
It's just horrible man. And when you think, how are we going to get rid of him? That's the point. I saw Elon Musk today had asked the king to absolve Parliament and all that. But Elon Musk cares more about our country than this government. He obviously knows stuff. People. And I'm passionate over this last 48 hours about what they call the grooming gangs. They should be called exploitation gangs.
Yeah, exploitation, or at least raping gangs, for goodness
exactly.
sake.
And they shouldn't be called Asian gangs, because you don't see the Japanese doing this. You don't see the Chinese. You don't see the Filipinos. When you look at the mugshots, I'm sorry, folks, I am not racist. Let me be clear on that. I have a Nigerian stepdaughter-in-law who's utterly beautiful. I have Nigerian children, utterly beautiful. I am not racist. I'm a realist. And I would urge anyone listening to this to look up Enoch Powell's speech. When I was a young girl, my dad and I had a terrible row about this. He told me I was racist. I said, "I'm not racist, Dad. This is going to be my world, not yours." Enoch Powell, The Rivers of Blood. He was not racist. He actually was visionary and prophetic, and he expresses his concern of how Britain will be if we don't get a grip on this. And here we are today. The man was a prophetic. He was not racist. And we've got these gangs. Do you know what? The criminal gangs are going over the channel to recruit from the migrant camps. About 2/3 of the gangs now in England are Albanian, brought over on the migrant camps, yeah? And, they are recruited for taxi drivers, all sorts of things. They've really got their act together. And how long has this gone on for? Andy Burnham, who is the mayor of the GMP, Greater Manchester Police. There was a quote I saw of him only yesterday that he knew of these gangs back in the mid-90s. That is 35 years ago. I knew of them when I started this work I do for 23 years. I knew it existed. No one. And what is the big reveal? That no one has bothered to do anything about it. And these gangs now have us in the grip of their control. They are all over the UK. Oldham Council was completely corrupt. The Labour councils across the country have allowed these gangs to continue. You've only got to look at the mugshots. You will see Pakistani, you will see Bangladeshi. Yes, you will see white as well. But predominantly, and Alexis J., who did the ICSA inquiry.
Child abuse inquiry.
Right, yeah, the independent inquiry on child abuse. In 2014, so we're talking about 10 years ago, she knew of 1,400 children between 1997 and 2013 that have been sexually exploited by predominantly Pakistani British men. And that's the trouble, you see. They're born in here, aren't they? So we can't deport them. We need January 2024. Let's fast forward. January 2024, the National Health Service in Rochdale said they had 260 victims referred to them that had not been acted on. And as for Starmer going on saying, I think yesterday or the day before, oh, people have little understanding. No, they don't. People are incompetent. They're incompetent. What understanding do you need?
It's not just incompetence, though, is it? It's not just incompetence. It's absolutely a political agenda. No doubt about it.
And they are indifferent, Sonia. That's what gets me. And they are silenced by their chief constables. I can't believe the amount of following I got having done Talk TV yesterday, right? And I was really verbose about this. And I said, I'm not, I'm sticking my head above the parapet. The number of people that said, you are saying what we want to say, right? Now, let's listen to this. The Office of National Statistics tell me they keep no record of ethnic minority offenders when it's to do with gang exploitation, right?
That's ridiculous, though. We need to know demographics. If there
you won't get it, you won't get the
thread.
You won't get the figures. You won't get the figures. But a police officer tweeted me last night and said, I've been a police officer for 30 years. They absolutely do know, because as police officers, every report that you do, you have to tick the ethnicity box. So they do know. So why are they covering up? Because I totally agree with David English. Somebody above all this, who are these people, hidden people, are trying to rip out the fabric of what is the UK. I really worry about. And as for Jess Phillips, I mean, she should be so ashamed of herself.
So let's just give a little quick background on that. Jess Phillips, of course, is the minister who has now said that it's not down to her to call for an inquiry into these grooming gangs, right? It's down to the individual councils. But Jess, you are a politician. You could have influence over this.
Of course you could.
Is it a cop-out?
Of course it is. Okay, no one's allowed to talk, are they? You've got to funnel everything through that idiot Starmer. So a year ago, look at what she said about a year ago when she was absolutely for protecting violence against women and girls. And that's before, of course, Labour got in. No one's allowed to do anything anymore. You can't even change the loo paper colour in the toilets of House of Commons, I imagine, because Keir Starmer might disapprove. I mean, he has to go. Somehow people have got, I think there will be some sort of revolution in a way, because I think people are beginning to actually see they're sick of the migrant boats coming in and the way they're coming in. I'm not anti-immigration, don't get me wrong. If you can bring something to this country that is beneficial to us, and we have plenty of them that have, are that. My husband was put into hospital the other day. He collapsed, his legs didn't work. Every single person that looked after him was African or Asian, lovely, lovely, lovely people contributing to us. But to come on a gang and then there's something like 5,000 migrants have disappeared here. Where are they then? Where are they?
It's a serious issue. But before you leave us, right, it would be really remiss of me not to get a quick comment from you about also the fact that we've heard so much about church abuse again this year and the cover up. I know this all makes you sick to the core, but you're out there fighting the good fight. But don't you think it's a positive thing that we're all seeing very clearly now everything that's taking place?
I totally agree. And I agree with David. The mask is coming off. People are, I mean, it's always been in the press, on a daily basis sort of thing. But now when you've got something like the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is complete waste of space. I met him. I met Justin Welby. And I said to him, and I'm going back 20 years, or when it was he came in, I can't remember now. And I went to see him and I spent an hour and a half with him at Lambeth Palace. And I said to him, well, he said, I'm not the Pope. I said, I didn't say you were the Pope. But and the Pope has autocracy. He said, I look after 80 million Anglicans. I said, do you? Well, how many of those Anglicans are being sexually abused by your blooming priests and vicars and passed on to the next parish? And I said, you know what? I said, if you believe in all this, and there's St. Michael up there with his gates waiting to welcome you, say I made that grade, doubt it, but say I made that grade. And he said, so, Madelaine, what have you done on earth? And I would say, I gave my life for 23 years. The moment my 3 boys were sexually abused, I gave my life, and I will continue to give my life to protect any child, just one child. My oxygen's been worth it, and that's my legacy. What's yours? What would you answer to?
What a powerful legacy.
He just looked at me and he said, I don't think 80 million Anglicans is going to cut it, because that's your job. I do this out of altruistic reasons. And still nothing's changed. The church is so corrupt. The bishops, the House of Bishops, so corrupt. It's just, I will never lose my faith, because I just cut out the middleman, because they're too interested in swinging incense and wearing lace and purple stoned rings, aren't they? You know, I just, the hypocrisy is what gets to me. The hypocrisy that people, you know, I get attacked for my opinions. I don't give a damn, because I'm still going to say it, because I know I had a lady email me just before I came on, Sonia, who told me that her 3 girls are young teenagers in Preston, living up near Manchester. She's frightened of letting her young girls out in the streets because there are Pakistani men following them. She gets no traction with the police. She gets no traction with the MP. Hello, this is today.
Yeah, but hopefully, I've got to let you go, unfortunately, but just because of time marching on. But hopefully, as a consequence of your great work, which is over a very long period of time, you've been at this at least 3 decades now.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely formidable woman. Everybody, this is Madelaine Hawes. I know you love her in the comments. They love you. Absolutely.
Sonia, I love you too. This is media at its best, because it's media that brings these things to the fore in an intelligent way. And we keep power driving that out and put these things on YouTube and get people to join and come out the closet, if you like, and say, you know, this is wrong. Contact your MPs, raise Cain about this, because this country is on a rapid downward spiral if we don't change something soon. And I worry for the lives of my 8 grandchildren. And if you are on that boat with me, please contact and say, enough. The rot has got to stop, because it isn't stopping.
I don't even know what to say to follow that, other than you are formidable and phenomenal. We love you. Always welcome on here,
Happy
everybody.
New Year, Sonia.
This is Madelaine Hawes. Yes, she is. She's dynamite. Oh, yes, she is, people. Happy New Year to you too, sweetheart. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you, everybody.
Madelaine Hawes, everybody. I will put a link in the description to Marilyn's. She's a CEO at Freedom from Abuse. She's a brilliant woman. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care, darling. God bless you too.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Phenomenal. Yes, I know. She's absolutely phenomenal. You can't mess with her. You cannot mess with her. Thank you, Madelaine. You're an inspiration to us all. Keep on keeping on, warrior woman. Fantastic, says Ian. Many thanks, Madelaine. I'm not going to hang around, because I want to bring in this geezer. It's Craig Campbell. Good morning, Craig.
Hello. How are you doing?
Happy New Year, Poppet. How are you?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm doing okay. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm very glad to have you on with us. Of course, this is a different show. This is our first back, our first show back in the new year, although we don't call it a new year around here, but you get the point. And you are, of course, one half of Podcasters Only Cans, and you are doing a live review tonight, aren't you, with Zoe? It's her birthday today. Absolutely.
Yes. Happy birthday, Zoe.
What time are you podcasting tonight?
I think it's 6 o'clock tonight on YouTube. On the Synchronized Souls podcast, so we'll be on 6 till 7, I believe.
We will put, well, there's a link in the description already, actually. And obviously, one of the main stories that you have covered for a very long period of time, in fact, how we came together, was the story of missing Madelaine McCann. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And huge story. I mean, huge story. For anybody who doesn't know the background story, British child reported missing May the 3rd, 2007, 12 days away from her 4th birthday. 9 adults there. None of them have really been investigated properly. Craig is forensic in covering this case. In terms of 2024, what do you feel were the big movements on this story, Craig?
Yeah, so it was a year. I think when I spoke to you, Sonia, when we met, I mentioned this to you. It was like a year of chaos. It was like a year of noise. We had so many different headlines throughout the year, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them, right? Just really quick.
For them.
I'll go more in depth tonight, but just to give you a sort of insight into what the year was like on McCann, as we call it on Twitter. So as the year sort of started, around about April, we had a witness that came out saying that he saw videos on Christian Bruckner's like devices, videos of Bruckner. If we went slightly...
Just quickly, Christian Bruckner, of course, was the German prisoner that they have been determined since 2020 to fit this cap to, that he took Madelaine, right? But people like you and I know it was absolute nonsense. Go on.
No. Yeah, exactly. Once you visit the scene of the crime, you just know straight away that there's just to make the timeline fit into what would needed to have happened. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So that was around about April, right? Just before that, I don't know if you remember this, the Portuguese, there was a massive thing that came out in the news. Portuguese police apologised to the McCanns. So they gave the McCanns an apology, which was absolutely totally made up. I think there was a meeting that Jerry McCann was present at, but there was no apology offered. The Portuguese then released a sort of statement through their media in Portugal, one of the famous newspapers through there. I forget the name of it, but they came out and said no, that there was no apology. But the news in Britain had already ran that story and didn't retract it or didn't sort of change anything around what they'd said, because so the damage is already done there, so everybody just thinks there's been an apology. And I was getting a lot of I told you so kind of thing. We also then had in May 2024 the McCanns released their annual statement saying that they'd returned to a normal life, which I remember I was in Pradaluz when that was released, and I about fell at my chair when I read that. I've never seen Ben Needham's mum coming out saying that her life went back to normal. I was flabbergasted at that statement. Then we went on, and we were hitting around about May again. We had the foreign detective Bernie came bursting onto the scene when I was present at his book launch, which was another thing. Then as the year sort of drifted on,
and just to stop you there, of course, that's
sure.
All of that has gone viral in terms of Bernie, and Bernie was on the very first show of Wake Up. And just to reiterate this, because people say to me, why I get emails saying, why haven't you had Bernie on? I'm just waiting for Bernie's evidence, because I brought Bernie on the first show, and he's written this book, and he's obviously had a viral interview with James English, but I do need to see the evidence that he's talking about before I bring him on. This evidence, Craig, what can you explain to people what evidence I'm talking about?
Yeah, so Bernie claims that he's got video evidence of the McCanns going up is it Roca Negra, the black rock at the end of the beach, where it's you'll know it yourself. You've seen it. Everybody will know it. Actually, it's here.
There you go.
That's it. Yeah.
There
so
you go.
He's saying that he's got video footage of the McCanns up there. Now that's been coming on a year that he's been claiming this, been on various podcasts, and not one person has seen any shred of evidence. I've spoken to Bernie directly, and I'm so conscious of what I'm saying right now, because I do not want to get in any sort of podcast wars, or I don't. It's just not me. That's not my style. But when you come into this world and you start making these ridiculous, massive claims, you're going to get challenged. So you have to accept that. And unfortunately, when I challenged Bernie, he didn't like that at all. And that it didn't take to being challenged well. And still, as we sit here now, January 2025, there's not been one single photo, no stills, nothing, just absolutely massive claims. And when I was actually at his book launch, what I found was it was a lot of Richard D. Hall's work rehashed and turned into his own work with a couple of photos of the hill. And I thought,
right. Well, I think we should acknowledge Richard D. Hall in this, because I think that Richard D. Hall's work with the brilliant Peter Hyatt, who obviously has been through some health issues this last year, and lots of love to him, phenomenal man. But that statement analysis, I thought, was a real game changer. So that was brilliant work on behalf of Richard D. Hall. And all of these things should have changed the game, shouldn't it? But the official narrative has remained, hasn't it?
It has, and it still remains now. I mean, even just as late as in the year, we had a story in October. Christian Bruckner was then cleared of all his string of offences, but they used Madeleine's image in his offences being cleared. So I see it as almost like a psyop. It's like it's just to trick you into thinking that Madeleine is involved in this Bruckner case. Because I mean, I don't want to touch on it too much, but I did have a massive viral tweet, Sonia, which has had over 5 million impressions and numerous, and numerous comments as well. And see what is a great sample for me, because I like to study it, right? And I'll go through the comments and I'm reading what everybody's thinking and saying, and so many people are saying, wait, you're wrong, it's the German guy, and you have to pick and choose your battles, like when you're going to respond, when you're not going to respond.
That's a big lesson to learn, especially when you have a tweet that goes that viral. right?
Yeah.
You're going to get all manner of people jumping
Yeah,
in.
you really see
Like,
it. Yeah.
like I had people tweeting me again the Podesta picture, right? And
Yeah.
Jerry's in the Red Shoe Club, and it's like,
Yeah.
first of all, there is absolutely no source that the Podestas were in Praia de Luz on that date, and there is no source that they even have a property there. Jerry
Yeah.
McCann is certainly not in a Red Shoe Club. That's not even him. And all
No,
of
that's
these
right.
things must be frustrating for you, because it takes us away from what you and I know is the storyline that really needs to be followed to its conclusion, right?
Absolutely spot on, and that is the most frustrating part about this. There's at the end of the day, right? There was a little girl who's potentially died and never had any sort of justice, right? And everybody deserves justice. Every human being, I believe, deserves justice, and that's why it burns so deeply inside. Because when you know the PJ files, you read the statements, right? Everyone's allowed a theory, but your theory has to be allowed to be challenged, because that's how you get to the bottom of what happened. So if you get personally attached to your theory, then you're not going to be able to get to the bottom of it, because you just want to be right. So yeah, it's been a heck of a year, Sonia.
Well, let me add this to the stage. I don't know if you can see these images. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I think I it would be completely remiss of me not to just reflect on this. This, of course, is Julia. Julia is a young Polish woman, but she claims to be Madelaine McCann. Do you believe her to be Madelaine McCann?
No, Julia is absolutely categorically not Madelaine McCann. Again, I've had interactions with Julia. She's now blocked me on Twitter because she didn't like being challenged. So yeah, and what with Julia, what's kind of happened, if you remember, as well, as we go back to almost a year ago to the day, by the way, she was in a BBC News article apologising to the McCanns, saying that she's not Madelaine McCann, and she's so sorry. She got all caught up in it all, and she's just trying to find out who she really is. And then what happened was the limelight dipped, and people stopped giving her any sort of attention. And then she came back and said, actually, I was forced to say that I am actually Madelaine McCann, and she got a platform on Sean Atwood's channel.
Repeatedly, though.
Yeah, I think they're up to now 14 or 15 episodes.
Oh, that's pure exploitation, no matter what I think about her. And I think she's a fraud. But I also think that she's unwell, and I think that she's being exploited. And I think that's really poor show as well. So that's not good. Deluded, says Jacqueline, not you, as in Julia. And I think it's really important, the work you do. Why are you so determined to keep on this? How many years is it now? 7 years? Long time.
It's a long time, yeah. 7 or 8 years in now. I mean, I still remember when I kind of was a little bit lost myself, and my daughter had just been born, and I was in that early parenthood of like, what is going on? I don't understand. And then I stumbled across your work and watched a documentary on Madelaine, and then that led me to Richard D. Hall, and then I just woke up to everything. And for me, you know, I now go to Portugal once a year to be this. I mean, I almost used to like my toes would curl when I say this kind of thing, but I don't care anymore. I find it really spiritual to be there. I feel close to her. I feel close to her spirit. I know.
Understood.
And you've been there. You know what it's like when 10 o'clock at night hits on May 3. No matter what year it is, goosebumps, isn't it? The whole place falls silent. It's really bizarre. It's one of the most spiritual things I've ever experienced.
You're going to love this comment. Craig could literally be a historian for Madelaine. Well, the thing is, though, and honestly, this is the reality. One of the reasons why your tweet resonated is because even the little that you said about it, 15 out of 19 DNA markers in hire car boots, 17 cadaver and blood dog alerts to McCann only items. Jerry McCann had to change his official police statement in May 10, and then Smithman. These are very brief outlines, but it resonates with people because people can tell from reading that you know your stuff. That's what I really like, though, because people then ask. So then I was getting private messages, what's Smithman? And then you send some links and some photos, and they're like, wow, like I didn't know that was a thing. I remember there was one time I showed my mum one of our Only Cans episode, because my mum just didn't really know that I was so involved, and she was like, how do you know all this? I was like, because all the police files are actually there for you to go and read. You can go and read that. It's not me making it up. And that's one thing I'm always very, very careful of, is that
I'm not sitting here accusing anybody of anything. I'm sitting saying, I've read the police files. This is exactly what happened. Let's make it make sense. How do we work that out?
Absolutely. And I think what you've spent a lot of 2024 doing is stripping back the lies, the stuff that's being thrown at us. Do you feel any optimism that we will eventually get to the truth of what happened to Madelaine McCann?
I do.
Wow.
Because truth stands the test of time.
It does.
It will stand the test of time. And no matter what comes, and it's been a year of it, but look, we're still sitting here on the 3rd of January 2025 looking for Smithman. We're still talking about the DNA. They won't be able to fit around that. So the truth stands the test of time, Sonia. I believe, do you remember when I was sitting with you and I was talking to you and I said there could be a massive event, right? Something could change. So, and it can, and you've seen it through COVID. You know, they'll drop you like a hot stone or whatever that saying is. You know, as soon as they see the wind changing, they go, whoa, let's go that way. So yeah, I do believe that something will come eventually. Something. Will it be one of the twins who are now adults that we should be able to talk about now because they're adults? Will it be somebody coming out and saying something didn't make sense back then? And then it sets a domino effect going. I don't know, but I believe you've got to have hope. Got to.
I love this comment. This is great. Time cannot make false, which was once true. That's a fabulous one.
Absolutely.
And
That's
I love
amazing.
stuff like that. Yes, Markson, the truth will absolutely set you free. Please, people, 6:15 tonight on the Synchronized Souls podcast, you will be able to hear more and in greater depth from Craig and birthday girl Zoe. Yes, you will. Oh, yes, you will. Leave us with a parting shot of optimism moving forward on this into 2025.
Parting shot of optimism is the truth will set you free. That is exactly it. That's it right there. That's for Madelaine. And, you know, please be conscious, everybody that's watching this, right? This is how it's going to go. Around about February, we're going to start seeing news stories coming in again because Operation Grange is going to be getting their funding in March. So the news will start dripping around about the 5th or 6th of February. You'll start seeing the news dripping. It'll ramp up for the month, and then there'll be a big breaking news article, and then they'll get their funding in March. So just be conscious of it and don't fall for it.
And this is the genius about your knowledge, is because you can now see the cycles that they work on. Before you go, I have to ask you about this. Why do you think Kate and Jerry McCann felt the need to announce that there's £1 million in the fund?
Dead interesting, eh? That is so interesting.
That was a Christmas message, wasn't it?
Yeah. I wonder if it was sort of like, look, we've made like we're going up the way again. Like there's people like believe in us. There's people buying the book again because that's what they said. They said it was from the book, which I was absolutely stunned at. Who is buying that book? You know, what is going on there? But yeah, that was really interesting. What an interesting timing for them to say that they've broken £1 million again from the fund that they used to pay their mortgage with back in 2007.
Very curious. It feels very cyclical. And thank you for pointing out the nature of that, everybody. This is the wonderful Craig Campbell, who is not only a great podcast, but somebody I'm happy to call a friend. Yes, I am. Take good care of yourself. I love you too. Happy New Year to you, Poppet. Have a great show tonight. Wonderful. How wonderful to have our Craig with us. People, you know what it is, right? It's 11:07. I've still got to do a final thought, but it's been worth it. Thank you, Craig, says Drumstick. We won't fall for it, but we'll keep up the heat, says Peter. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Craig, says Karen. Morning, guys. Sorry I'm late, but Elon is calling out the king, says Simon. Is he? How funny. Right. What can I say? Thank you to all of my brilliant guests today. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you all for being here today. I truly appreciate you. Thank you, Jan. Thank you so much. Thank you all, Kevin and Jan and DJ Darkside, all of you. Good morning to you, sweetheart, and sail away. And Fred, thank you. And Adele and Helen, all of you. Helen says, keep fighting, Craig. Indeed. Thank you to all of my brilliant guests today. Haven't they been absolutely amazing and illuminating? We will be back as normal on Friday, looking at current news as opposed to reflecting back. But I want to end on this. Because this is all very much part of a big reveal. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. I'm not a religious person, but there are some beautiful texts in the Bible, as in all kind of religious doctrine, actually. And this particular phrase has changed over many times as the Bible has been reviewed and renewed. See you tonight. Oh, I'm very late, says Hamish. Have an amazing weekend, everyone. I will go for a ride in the snow in the woods. Thanks, everyone. I love you. Randy has got snow. We might be having snow in London, which is exciting. Literally, the show was on fire today, says Lisa. Thank you. And thank you, Adele. Thank you all. And thank you, Bijan. Beautiful. And thank you to our two wonderful mods. So let me just talk about this. I have enemies. Lots of them, lots of them, because I've covered so many controversial issues over the years. I have upset a lot, and I will emphasize that, a lot of people. Now, here's the thing. For those who know me, I might irritate you at times, and I'm sure that I do irritate you at times. Sometimes you might disagree with my opinions or analysis. Sometimes I might just be too loud, whatever it is. We're human, and it's okay to be irritated by people. Oh, it is absolutely more than okay. And sometimes, as I say, you might just disagree with something I've said, or it might just be a bad day for either of us, right? But all of that is fine and dandy in a healthy society. That is not hate. It is not hate. Say, Sonia, I think what you said sucks. Or Sonia, that is wrong. Please, can you correct it? Or Sonia, this needs to... That is not hate. That is wonderful. That helps us function, as I say, into a healthy society. Now, as you know, this show is about a multitude of different perspectives from all different angles. And so if you are somebody who likes to correct me or feels the need to correct me, I am not talking about you. Continue to do so. Let me get this right, okay? You're not hating on me. You're helping to build us up to become better, right? No, what I'm actually talking about are actual people who hate me to the point they wish me harm, like no longer here. There are people who exist like that, obsessively so. And because of their hatred of me and desire to destroy me, they follow everything I do. They know more about me half the time than my family. It's not normal, it's not desirable, and it's almost certainly criminal. And as in many previous years, 2024 was no different. People have hounded me, tried to silence me, threatened me, tried to incentivize me to go in different directions, followed me, stalked me, trolled me, done a multitude of things to stop me. A multitude of things to stop me saying the things that I need to do. And it has been a revelation to me. And this is my big reveal. In 2024, I have learned how seriously protected I am. And this statement, this part of a beautiful, longer quote from the Bible is something that I absolutely relate to. I absolutely relate to it so strongly, certainly in 2024. And because, as I say, I've learned how seriously protected I am, not just from you wonderful people who support this show and support what I do, but many people know that I'm not just interested in what goes on Earth. I was raised in a spiritual environment. My mum was a medium. I'm coming from a slightly different place. Okay. And I absolutely believe that there is something out there, something bigger than me that is supporting me and moving me on a constant basis. Let me just see if I can do that. Yeah, that's better. And something else is working in my favor that is absolutely determined to protect me no matter what the slings and arrows that are shot at me. Okay. Something else that is working to ensure I do what I do when I do it and for as long as I can. It's, you know, the thing is, I do consider what I'm doing an honor. And I consider it a service, right, to expose people in influential public roles who have stolen from us and have manipulated us. And I am honored to be given the task of doing it because I see it spiritually. I also think I am supported spiritually, as I say. I talk about my family committee often, my mum, my brother, my sister, my dog, my cat in spirit. And I know that there is something way beyond this earthly realm, way beyond it. Right? Some force, some energy, some source, some being that is in my court and not just willing me on and providing the stepping stones, but actively fighting for me when I've been placed in dangerous and precarious positions. 2024, despite all the people who hate me, was a good year. Best in many years, in fact. Yes, I had challenges and obstacles. People who threw craters at me and tried to pull me into things that I had no interest in getting involved with. I was subject to all kinds of attempts at silencing me, including when I was the breakfast show host at Today's News Talk. I have taken my colourful life experiences, of which I share with you all on a regular basis. I am a product of the School of Hard Knocks, and ashamedly so, I've been forged in the fire of life. And all of these things have become part of my success story. I'm not interested in materialism or money, often to my detriment. And yet somehow in 2024, despite walking away from the high-paying job of hosting the breakfast show, I launched our own breakfast show here, right here with Wake Up. We've just progressed like hugely in 6 months. I'm very, very proud of you. I'm proud of us. And I'm also proud of me for growing, because I'm also human and I've got my own failings and my own obstacles and my own challenges. And I'm enjoying some of the best relationships I've had in years. And that's almost certainly because I'm happier as a person, as a consequence of being in the right place. I am here right now in the right place with you. And all of this shows me that no weapon formed against me shall prosper. Absolutely not. Thank you, Randy. Thank you. We are here for a reason, for a season and a lifetime. Bless you too, Robert, sweetheart. Beacon of life, you all. Bless you too, Dilip. Absolutely. And so the fact is, I'm really grateful, like incredibly grateful to be here. I love talking to the live chat. I love seeing the comments for people who can't be here for the live chat and they leave them afterwards. And the reality is that I do genuinely, absolutely believe that I am protected. The evidence is there. I should have gone under a number of times. Financially, emotionally, mentally, I should have gone under, right? But somehow something kept pulling me back from the brink and saying, oh, no, 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 lady, you got a job to do. And so I am going to end with a quote, because why not, right? Why not? I was going to laugh, make a joke about it, and say, in terms of people attacking you, I saw this one quote said, if you can't beat them, arrange to have them beaten. But that's not where I'm coming from. Absolutely not. Where I'm coming from is about making sure you take care of what's in. And you know why? Because when there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you. Be your own best friend. Absolutely. I love you all. Please be there for the Synchronized Souls podcast tonight. Thank you to our wonderful Shin for the birthday song for Zoe. Thank you to lovely Marcuson for our new wake up jingle. And thank you to you all. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Our God's a good God. Absolutely. Cheers to you too, Jacqueline. Have a fantastic day. H is a new subscriber. Hope you all have a great day. Thank you all so, so very much to our wonderful, wonderful mods, and to you. You are perfect just the way you are, right? And no weapon formed against you shall prosper. Take excellent, excellent care of yourself. And I will see you on Friday as usual. Love you all. Happy 2025, peeps. Happy.